What you appreciate appreciates.
It seems simple, but I tell you what, it's a loaded one.
I think it is so much about gratitude. And I really think, Amanda, it's easy to say, you got to be thankful.
So easy to say it.
Genuinely happy.
I know I've heard you say this before. Happiness is a skill.
Our brain is like any other muscle that we have. We have to work it out. I have to constantly practice and work out this skill of gratitude.
Where do you feel like people fall down?
Sometimes we think the more gratification I get, the happier I'm going to actually become. The opposite is true. The more gratification I give to my senses or whatever it is,
The more I feel like it's missing.
we want more. We want to achieve more. One of the big obstacles that get in people's way is a lack of gratitude. And they stop appreciating all the same things that made them successful. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Wisdom of Wrench podcast. My name is Kevin Comerford, and I've got my co-host in studio, Amanda Meyer.
Hello, everybody.
And we have Andrew Zaragoza.
There you go.
Behind the mic and behind the computer system that's going to be with us today as well.
Hi, everybody.
Yes. Welcome, Andrew. Super excited about today's show. Today is a culture episode where we're going to be talking about a common service language inside of the Wrench Group, something that we use to build culture inside of Wrench. And it's a really special one today that Amanda and I are really going to be digging in and looking for some input from Andrew along the way as well. It is going to be special. We're excited about this. So let's get started. The common service language we're talking about today is this. What you appreciate appreciates. What you appreciate appreciates. Okay.
It seems simple, but I tell you what, it's a loaded one.
Yeah.
Now, I think I want to try and have this, put it in layman's terms, so to avoid any confusion. So what you appreciate appreciates. Said otherwise, the things that we're thankful for, and when we're thankful, those things grow in value, or they grow.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about gratitude already in our other culture episodes, so tell me how this one is different. This one's a little more refined.
Yeah, I think it's I think it is so much about gratitude. So much about being thankful. And I really think, Amanda, it's easy to say, you got to be thankful. You got to be
So easy to
genuinely happy.
say it. Right.
I think on this episode, we're going to dig a little bit deeper. And there's a definition that I'd love to start with regards to gratitude. And then I think we break it apart.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to read this definition that I got from Dan Sullivan. And here it is. What is gratitude? It's an internally generated capability that allows individuals to create and discover unlimited meaning and value in every situation and relationship in their life.
That's a lot.
Yes.
Say it one more time for us.
It's an internally generated capability that allows an individual to create and discover unlimited meaning and value in every situation and relationship in their life.
We should definitely break that up. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Internally generated capability. That was the first three words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, talk to me about that. That, I think, a key word there, internally versus externally.
Yeah.
Ooh, let's dig into that. I see that you've got stuff there.
Yeah. So what I've learned in my study of this appreciation and gratitude is exactly what this definition says. Gratitude is actually comes from within, where I think a lot of our society is looking for gratification from outside themselves. So gratitude is internally generated, internally created. I am in charge of it, which is a wonderful thing, through my attitudes and my daily habits. So if it's internally generated, let me give you an example. When I wake up in the morning, or if I wake up in the morning and I am thankful, and I go through a process before I get out of bed where I just am thankful for my blessings, and I get very specific to be terrific. I'm thankful for my family and what they have provided for me. I'm thankful for my children. I'm thankful for the business. Like that to me is like an attitude of gratitude where you just wake up and you're excited about what you've been given rather than being frustrated for what you lack. Because we all lack stuff. Gratitude is about being happy with what you have.
Okay, that makes sense. That ties back a lot to the gap and the gain that we talked about in Measure Backwards. I, based on what you're describing, it sounds very disciplined. This sounds. I don't know a lot of people who wake up excited, to be totally frank. Most people wake up and they're pretty groggy. They need a couple of cups of coffee before they can get going. I don't know about you, Andrew, but I know I definitely take a minute to get started in the morning. I know I've heard you say this before. Happiness is a skill. So tell me about that. Tell me about the discipline that goes into that.
I think our brain is like any other muscle that we have. And we have to work it out. We have to, if I'm looking to get my bicep, I work it out and do curls. Same thing with my mind. I have to constantly practice and work out this skill of gratitude, of waking up every morning and just being I'm excited. I'm excited about life. Even when I don't feel like we're going to the gym or working out.
Gratitude.
Even if I don't feel like saying those things, it's like you just get in the habit of waking up and appreciating and being thankful for what God has blessed you with, what you have.
Okay. And I know internally generated versus external. You've mentioned gratification. The first thing that comes to mind is social media, of course.
Yes.
And I know the idea of consumerism, the idea that things can make us happy. I think we've all heard those things before, but I want to make sure that we're putting it in a context that is really meaningful today. So where do you feel like people fall down when they're at the crossroads between those two things?
Yeah, and I would say, from my experience, I think what gets in the way of gratitude is consumerism, is our yearning and technology in particular, whether it's different apps or iPhones or whatever, that it is looking to give us as human beings more and more gratification through all of our senses, through our sight, through our touch, through our taste, through our smell, whatever it is. We are in a consumerism society that wants a lot of gratification. And the more I think sometimes we think the more gratification I get, the happier I'm going to actually become. Funny thing is, Amanda, the opposite is true.
Right.
The more gratification I give to my senses or whatever it is, it's actually
the more I feel like is missing.
The emptiness.
Right.
And so that's why this balance between gratification and gratitude is so important. You have to balance it out. So if which we all are, we want more. We want more. We want to achieve more.
That's kind of a scary concept when you think about it, which is when we use that phrase, internal capability, internally generated capability. Did I get it?
Yeah.
Internally generated capability. We have the power to do that. And there's really there's nothing outside of us that can help us with that. There's no thing that will help us. we don't want to give our power to someone else. We have to have that power to make ourselves happy.
Yes.
And that can actually be a little terrifying, I think. that we have to maintain that discipline in order to have that gratitude and that happiness.
Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. And the internal, we keep going back to habits, and the fact that this is something that you have to continuously work on. And you mentioned the word discipline. I think you're 100% right, but it's really the discipline to create a habit of having an attitude of gratitude. To me, is where this concept really becomes like you almost don't even have to think about it.
Your words are your truth.
One of the things that I do want to share is that, and it's really around what I think holds people back sometimes. One of the big obstacles that get in people's way to their personal growth is a lack of gratitude. And they stop appreciating all the same things that made them successful.
Okay.
Like, for example, you come in to a company and a service technician starts to have a lot of success. And they're coming in and they're thankful for what they have been given, and maybe it's the new environment, the new job, all the resources that the company is providing them that's allowing them this platform to succeed. And then all of a sudden they get what I like to call the disease of me. They begin to forget and they begin to lose and lack appreciation for the very things that help them to be successful.
Okay.
And so a lot of times you just have to have a discussion with that person. Hey, remember where you came from. Remember what was it that made you successful. And you would hope that they could kind of get over that and get over themselves, because to me, the disease of me is something that I certainly can get as well.
Right.
Where I could be so caught up and consumed in myself and think that I'm, all of this is because of me. It's like, no, Kevin.
All of this is because of me, the disease of me.
Yes.
So you said it gets in the way of your personal growth.
Yeah.
How does that manifest for this technician if they continue to have the disease of me?
Well, if you begin to if you begin to think that all this success that you have is because of you, you really stop learning. You really stop growing.
You can't surrender to.
Exactly. You really stop looking for those other people that can help you achieve even more, because you think it's all about you. You lose the ability to be able to surrender to someone else's success, to surrender to someone else's greatness, which in fact, if you can, and you can learn from them, that will only help you achieve more. But if you think all of this is because of me and I'm the best, your personal growth, both professionally and and personally will begin to slide.
Wow. I've never really thought about gratitude and humility in that context. That's really interesting about how an inability to be humble and be mindful of those around you can then get in the way of your personal success and in the way of your personal growth as a result. Yes. It can be easy to talk a big game and want to be a little full of yourself, right? Sometimes you feel like you've earned it, but the reality is that I think that if we fail to be grateful for what's around us, we really can't be humble. We can't surrender to other people's success. That's so true.
Yes. Yeah. And if we dig in further to this definition, that it's an internally generated capability that allows an individual to create and discover unlimited meaning and value. When I say those words, it allows an individual to create and discover unlimited meaning and value. What comes to your mind?
What you appreciate appreciates.
Yeah.
Full circle. Nailed it. So my ability to generate gratitude allows me to create unlimited meaning and value. Mm-hmm. I think part of that comes back to the humility that we just talked about, which is if I maintain a mindset of gratitude, I then have an unlimited learning capability. Mm-hmm. I have an unlimited ability to grow. Mm-hmm. Value, give me the last part. Value in our relationships.
Allows an individual to create and discover unlimited meaning and value in every situation and relationship in life.
That's so powerful. Every situation and relationship in life. Ooh, it is a mouthful, I have to say. That whole definition's a lot. I mean, what comes to mind immediately, right, is from a personal aspect, which is when we're able to choose the relationships that we're in, right, mm-hmm. the relationships that we have, I want those to have an unlimited value. I want them to be continuously valuable for both parties. Mm-hmm. And gratitude, people want to be around grateful people, right? I know that you've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Which is that people will go out of their way to help those that are grateful.
Yeah.
And they will go out of their ways to get in the way of ungrateful people. Did I get that right?
Oh, yeah. No, that's interesting that you should say that. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So say that again. So you said everyone loves a grateful person.
Yes.
And what do you mean by that?
So I find that the act of appreciation, right, makes people feel good about themselves, mm-hmm. and they then become grateful in return. I think when you recognize what you're grateful for in that person, they then feel grateful for that thing as well. Mm-hmm. You're sharing that gratitude. You're sharing that appreciation, and it creates I don't want to say it creates a relationship. It creates a give and take. I think that is it's mutually beneficial. It creates the will to continue that appreciation. And as a result, I think that we go out of our way to then be grateful, to then share that appreciation and to help that person.
Let me give you, I got a couple examples.
I love it. Let's hear it.
And I know you know this gentleman. His name is Ray Diaz.
Yes. I'm familiar with him.
You know who Ray Diaz is.
I think so.
So Ray and I have worked together for 30 years.
Yeah.
So talk about valuing relationships and that is a relationship that I am so grateful for. We've worked in business for 30 years together. At every turn, Ray always makes it a point numerous times over the course of the year, he will make sure that I know how much he appreciates the role that he's been placed in. He thanks my parents for what they did to help create the business that I worked in before I started my own. He is so appreciative of what we have here as an organization, what we built. Continuously has told me time and time again, Kevin, there's no way I would have been able to put my son through college without all the things that you've done for me. So he has gone out of his way to really do these acts of kindness and words of encouragement. And so guess what I always want to do for him, Amanda?
Help him.
I always want to help him succeed. I always want to be there for him and support him. And he's what drives me to want to create more for Ray. Because like you said, everybody loves and wants to line up and come alongside a grateful person.
That ties so well, I think, in our personal lives and as like a manager, I think too, right? As a team member. Mm-hmm. People want to help.
Yes.
People want to cheer for. People want to follow a grateful person.
Yes. Yeah. So if you have a salesperson who is doing extremely well, right? Mm-hmm. And all along the way, they're acknowledging their team. What do you want to do for that person if you're a part of that team?
I want them to be successful.
Yeah. Does it even matter that they're making all kinds of money? Does it matter?
No, I want to be on their team.
Yeah. And why is that?
What you appreciate appreciates. I'm nailing it today, Kevin. I'm nailing it today.
You are. You are.
I think there's a couple of things there. I think that when you are with someone that acknowledges what you do well or acknowledges the contribution that you make, you continue to want to make that contribution. I also think that people like to be around winners, which is that when you're in a successful relationship like that, you want it to continue to be successful and you want to continue to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And you said something else that I want to come back to, which is the opposite.
Yeah.
Does it almost seem like people want to get in the way of the ungrateful person's success?
I have too many stories of me in high school going out of my way to get in someone's way because I didn't like them. I'm sure that everybody does, right?
Yeah.
At a certain point, you're a snotty teenager or whatever, and you're going to go out of your way to ruin somebody's day. And I think that maybe not as a childish as adults, right? But I think that that as an adult, you still maintain a little bit of that sometimes, which is that if you're around someone who has the disease of me, or fails to recognize other people's contributions, maybe not even your own, maybe you just see it happening, I think you're inclined to not want to help that person. Mm-hmm. You know what? They think they have all the answers. I don't need to get involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's bring it down to like a call center agent, right? If you've got a call center agent that is they're a high performer, but they fail to acknowledge anybody that's helped them along the way. Mm-hmm. What do their relationships look like with all the other call center agents?
There are no relationships there, really, right? I mean, I think, especially in a team environment like that, right, peer to peer, people who fail to acknowledge the support that they received. People who fail to acknowledge, the system that helps them, the managers that help them, the family that supports them. No one wants to root for that person, and in a lot of ways, no one really wants to be around that person, and therefore, no one's going to help that person. It's messy.
Yeah, and
it's messy.
And the key thing there is help.
Yeah,
like we're all going to need help,
right?
We're all going to need help. Leading up to this podcast, Carolyn and I have a very special friend of ours. It's actually Carolyn, my wife's, one of her best friends from grammar school, Stacy. And leading up to us doing this podcast, I'd known that we were doing this podcast, and Stacy has come down with breast cancer. And over the last 3 months have been going through a tremendous amount of chemotherapy and surgeries and all the things that are associated with breast cancer to remove it. And it has been unbelievable for me to see the level of support and love that Stacy has received from friends and coworkers around the country who have come in to support her Every time she has a treatment, every time she has a surgery, they just come, they flock. Carolyn, my wife, was there for 2 days, about a week and a half ago at her house before Stacy came to our house. And Stacy had mentioned to me just yesterday that, hey, I got to thank Carolyn. She threw the party for my 17-year-old son. And it's like, I think to myself, okay, here is a woman that has had so many relationships and so many people line up for her in her time of need. And I asked her a question. I asked her this question: hey, Stacy, tell me about why it is that you think that you have all these people lined up wanting to help you in your time of need. And, she's kind of like a fish that sees water or doesn't see water. She's like, well, I got a lot of people that I love. And I'm like, okay, I dug in. I'm like, so tell me, what have you done? Is there anything that you've done with your relationships intentionally over the course of time? And she then began to say to me, well, I did start this thing on Fridays. Every Friday, I called it the gratitude hour that I blocked off on my calendar. And I would take the time to go and recognize the people that worked for me. And in particular, I would always recognize a lot of the top performers because I had to spend a lot of time with the mediocre performers, but I always wanted to do these small little acts of kindness in that hour every single week. Every Friday, I had it blocked off. She didn't give me the time, but let's just say it's at 10 a.m. But she said it was an hour long. And then she realized, why am I only doing this once a week? Why am I only doing this once a week? So she went to daily, where she would have it blocked off in her schedule. She said usually towards the end of the day, she'd have it blocked off towards her schedule where she was very specific and intentional with reaching out with little small random acts of kindness to her coworkers, her personal friends, and she has done this for years and years.
Wow.
And I'm like, Stacy, are you okay if I share this on our podcast? This is unbelievable.
That's so actionable too. That's so great.
Stacy, what you appreciate appreciates.
Nailed it.
And when I say that Stacy has put that to good use with her relationships, what comes to your mind there when I tell that story about Stacy and what they've done for her relationships?
It comes back around, right? People who are grateful. People want to help people who are grateful. Everybody loves someone who's grateful. I think we learn that lesson time and time again, and I think it's so true here.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's clear to me that Stacy has put a huge value on relationships and has utilized that what you appreciates when it comes to her relationships over the course of many, many years. She's put in the work. She's put in the effort. And guess what? It's come back tenfold.
Yeah.
From what I've observed and what I've seen when she is in her most time of need. So it's just, it's unbelievable. It's incredible.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Wow. What a great example. Wow. You really queued that one up. That was, how's that for timing?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. That's so cool. Well, that actually, I don't know if I'm probably stepping over a little bit in terms of our common service language. It makes me think a lot about the grass is greenest where you water it. And I think that's a great example of that, which is that if you choose to be thankful and you choose to put the effort in with where you're at and what you have, that's where the grass is green.
That's right. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think what I'd love to talk about next is how this relates to leaders and managers inside Wrench.
Yeah.
Because as you know, and you've heard this concept before, people always quit their managers.
Right. They don't quit
never,
the job.
They never quit their company.
Mm-hmm.
They quit their managers. And let's say you're a manager that has high expectations, right?
Right.
Is there anything wrong with that?
Not at all.
High expectations of performance, maybe high expectations of personal appearance,
Of their character.
Yeah. Do they come in and are they dressed nice? Are they clean cut? Do they wear their uniform right? Is their truck clean? Do they perform at a high level? Are they achieving and succeeding? All these things when it comes to high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as a bank account, an emotional bank account. And if managers, as long as managers' appreciation for that person is greater than the expectation, the emotional bank account for that person is going to be okay. So make sure, I guess what I'm sharing here is make sure that your appreciation always exceeds the expectations that you have for an individual.
That's interesting. A few things come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think Stacy's exercise of putting time aside every day, especially at the end of the day. What a great time. What a great time to do this exercise, right? What a great way to end your day. I think that exercise can be great for a manager who may tend to forget. I know I definitely have the issue of I sometimes am business only, and I have to make sure that I put time aside, and I am very intentional about it, about showing my appreciation to my team. That exercise that Stacy described, I think that's really valuable for managers out there who feel that maybe they need to work on that bank account. They need to make sure that they're more intentional about appreciation. I think the other thing that comes to mind for me is be specific to be terrific, which is that I know I'm always very intentional about wanting to avoid generic praise. Because I feel like it can come off as artificial. I don't know if you've ever run into that problem, but
yes.
I know the place that it comes up the most, I feel like, is when people want to do the compliment sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
They have feedback, but they realize they haven't built anything in that bank account, and so they throw out a couple of generic, you're doing great, and this is, you're awesome, and you're just such a great team player, but by the way, your numbers suck, but I believe in you, and you're going to do great. And it's like, that's a lot of generic stuff you're putting around a message that's probably going to get lost anyway. Mm-hmm. And now you've had a fairly valueless conversation with that team member. I think being really intentional about the gratitude that you show, the appreciation that you're showing, being really intentional and specific about it, and making sure that you're not just doing it when you know you have to deliver bad news. I think that's really important.
So good. So good. You when you talk about being intentional with it, the great John Wooden,
Yes.
Who was the head coach of the UCLA Bruins when they won 10 consecutive championships in college basketball. Perfect timing. We got the NCAA tournament getting ready to start. John Wooden used to talk about being intentional about a 4-to-1 ratio. So if I'm going to correct someone about maybe they're struggling with their dribbling, and you have to be intentional about finding 4 good things. His ratio was 4-to-1. Like, look to compliment somebody specific, and he referenced that specific to be terrific. Like finding 4 good things about someone. When you're going to find one negative thing, when you're going to find what I call a gift, which is something that's going to help them, because people do need to be coached up. They do. I think a lot of managers miss is they're constantly doing the coaching, like they're you need to do this, you need to work on this, you need to work on that, without looking for the good,
Right.
without being intentional about finding where that person is performing well, going out of their way to give them random compliments, random acts of kindness.
Yeah. The random ones always hit stronger too, I feel.
Yes.
I know my managers are very good about the balance that they have in their one-on-ones, but it's scheduled time. And so it reads a little bit differently than if they're just getting a way to go in the middle of the week, right? At a random time. My favorite thing to do, especially when I'm like in a bad mood, is I'll like go to a retail store and I'll just start telling people, I'll give people compliments very randomly in the store.
Yes.
Nothing will make them feel better. I don't know, for any men out there, if you've given a compliment to your wife and she does not care what you have to say, and then some rando tells her that she looks nice and suddenly it matters, I tell you what, that it'll make your day, y'all. Like if you're ever having a bad day, do that. Go to a retail store, just start passing out compliments.
Yes.
It makes a difference. But random, I think the intentional gratitude, the intentional appreciation at random times, it hits the strongest.
Yeah. And this comes back to the whole concept of gratitude, which is it is internally generated. It's an internal capability. So that's where the intentionality shows up.
For sure.
I have another story where I saw this show up, and it was at a baseball party that we hosted at our house. And it was my son's college team was over our house. And this is about as intentional, I think, as you can get. And the coach ran the players through an exercise. Imagine this. There's 6 tables. There's about 8 to 10 players at each of the tables. And what the coach asks the players to do is he wants each of them to stand up. This is after dinner, after everybody's had dessert. Evening's kind of beginning to wind down a little bit, and everybody's all full and happy. And the coach said, okay, I'd like each of you to just kind of go around the room one by one, and I'd like you to stand up, and I'd like you to answer these 2 questions. Number 1, what do you appreciate the most about the baseball culture here at our school? That was number 1. The second thing he asked was, who in the room, which one of the current players has had the biggest impact on you physically, mentally, and why? What have they done? So what he was intentional about was getting the players to acknowledge what it was that they appreciated about the culture, and almost a reminder of how special the culture was and how special what they've built there was. The second thing he got the players to do with the second question he asked was they were now acknowledging these fellow team members. These are men that are acknowledging other men for what they had done. And some of the things that were shared were incredible. Like, and this is just an example, but Billy was saying, there's some of the stuff that Johnny helped me with and that I've never shared with anybody else. And it got super emotional to the point where some of the players were even crying.
Wow.
And it was the coach being intentional about putting all these boys through an exercise that allows them to acknowledge not only the program that they have and what they've built as a culture, but also individually. And to me, what I saw by watching that exercise was what you appreciates. Now the team has more culture to build on. Now they're going to acknowledge, and now they know that, that we each have each other's back. So it's now building a stronger culture. Mm-hmm. They're now building stronger connections.
That's another great actionable item for our leaders, which is it's not only important for you to express gratitude, but have your team go through the exercise of expressing gratitude. Help them with that exercise because it will only help them have the right mindset.
Yes. I've seen something like this happen with our sales leaders when they've brought our salespeople together, our service technicians, when you bring the technicians together, just having them stand up and share what they appreciate about each other, just like what I saw at the baseball thing. It's a powerful, powerful exercise that's so in line with this common service language.
So talking about being intentional kind of reminds me of another phrase that we say often, which is movement is medicine, which is that in order to heal something that hurts, intent and action is what's needed. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's right in line with this, which is the action is the thinking about what you're grateful for, the writing down what you're grateful for, and looking back and appreciating what maybe happened yesterday so that you can build off of it today. To me, when I hear you say that, I think about and how it relates to me is, and I've said this before, just writing out my wins from yesterday. What is it that went well yesterday? For me, it's an exercise I go through just looking for the good. What was it that went well yesterday? Because, Amanda, I can always find the bad. I can always find the bad. And it's funny because my mind sometimes wants to go to the bad.
Right. It's very easy to fall in that trap.
Yeah. My mind goes towards the path of least resistance, which is it kind of wants to steer towards negativity. So if I can steer it towards positivity, steer it towards, okay, Kevin, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Okay, slow down. What went well yesterday? And it's that activity. Writing out what is it that I'm thankful for? Thinking about what I'm thankful for before I get out of bed.
If I was going to dumb that down, I would say that don't wait for gratitude to come to you. Take the action to feel gratitude.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And happiness and gratitude is created. It's not something that you automatically
happens to you.
It doesn't happen to you. It is a skill that I have to work on continuously. Because I think through appreciation, through gratitude, that's where happiness comes from. That skill of happiness comes from. Yeah, one of the other things why I think it's so critical for us to be intentional about looking for the good is what we're constantly bombarded with from the news. I mean, we're bombarded with negativity, right? We are, I like to call it, we are engineered for success, but programmed for failure. We were built perfect, but the program that we have inside of our mind, our operating system is constantly being fed negativity from news programs, from organizations, from the outside world a lot of times. And so it has a huge effect on us. And if you look at some recent studies, the news is at least 10-1 negative stories to positive.
Right.
That it's that old saying that if it bleeds, it leads.
I don't love that.
If it bleeds, it leads. It's going to lead the newscast. And it's just the way that the news media gets people to come back tomorrow is through negativity and is through fear. And if we think, oh my gosh, the world's caving in, they're going to come back and watch it tomorrow. And then they're going to watch it the next day. And then they're going to watch it the next day. It's like, no, we got to break that cycle. Yeah. And really it's we can't help that that's the way it is. But what we can help is the understanding that, hey, gratitude and happiness is internally generated, not externally.
Yeah. that's a good example too of how gratitude and anxiety are on opposite sides of the spectrum, which is that if you're feeling anxiety, practice gratitude to help relieve it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think practicing gratitude. You'll hear a lot about practicing breathing, practicing meditation, slowing down, taking time for yourself, just thinking, because to think is to create. And if we just slow down and think, and we're very intentional about what we're thinking about, because what I think about creates my life. So if my thoughts are bad, guess what? What's my life going to be like? The beautiful thing is, if my thoughts are good and my thoughts are positive, guess where my life is going? Yeah.
So powerful. Well, what else do you want to talk about?
Well, I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
I think if we go back to the very beginning.
Yeah, let's hit me with that definition one
Yeah.
more time of gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah, because remember, what you appreciates is really about, at the end of the day, it's about gratitude. And the definition of gratitude that I started this with is, gratitude is an internally generated capability that allows an individual to create and discover unlimited meaning and value in every situation and relationship in their life. So like that topic we talked about, which is happiness, it's something that I've got to constantly work on. And as Jim Rohn said, the famous business philosopher, that if you want to make a living, work hard at your job. And if you want to make a fortune, work hard on yourself. What we've talked about today is really one more thing, not just one more thing, one incredibly important thing, that if you can master this skill of gratitude, master this skill of appreciation, it will have a profound impact on you and the people around you. So as we end every show, I'm always looking to make my future bigger than my past. We've accomplished a lot of great things, Amanda, together, individually. I'm always looking to make my future bigger than my past. And I wish that for all of you as well. So signing off, team, here's to a bigger future. Thank you very much.